Since the beginning of time, people have discussed the great combinations in the world. Chocolate and peanut butter. Strawberries and whipped cream. Habanero sauce and raspberries. Guacamole and cherries. Well, maybe not that last combination. But Linux Mint has brought together two great flavors to create an awesome distribution called Mint Cinnamon. Yes, that's right, folks. We are looking at Linux Mint 17.2 Cinnamon Edition. Hello, YouTube. It's DasGregor. And after having that bad taste in my mouth of a Ubuntu last week, I wanted to look at something else that was at least a Ubuntu flavored distro or based distro that shows that it isn't Ubuntu's fault, that the repositories are good, that the backbone is good, but whoever came up with the idea of Unity in a simplified, locked down desktop that just isn't for everybody, Mint has brought you Cinnamon. Cinnamon still is on top of the GNOME Shell 3. Everything kind of gives you that feel of almost the GNOME 2 flavor. I'm not going to get into too much of the can't speak today. I'm not going to get into many of the specifics. If you'd like to look at a lot more of that, go check out Linux for You and Me's video on Cinnamon. He did a great review talking about all the different features and going over some of the stuff on the website. I'd like to just point out a few things that make this a DasGregor exclusive. First off, I'm not sure what went wrong. I was checking out Linux 17.1 and I had no problems. My choice of video recording is with GUVC View, and for some reason, whenever I start up GUVC View with 17.2, I get nothing but a black screen with no visible camera. The camera lights up, but it's just a black screen for my ugly mug. So I'm using Cheese. I'm not sure why that is the way it is, but there are workarounds to be used. Linux Mint Cinnamon uses a simplified desktop, which almost looks like Lancelot, my favorite application launcher from KDE 4. Although there are a few differences, the menus are over here, but you can still search. Things do work well. There are some things that I don't care for, such as something that Linux for Me stated, that as you add your favorites over here, the desktop keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, growing to the top. And I'll give you an example. If we remove, for instance, Firefox from this menu, and to remove Firefox, it was kind of an interesting way to figure it. Drag it over here, and, well, it worked last time I tried it. There we go. Gotta drag it far enough away. And you notice it got smaller, and like this one here, I really don't care about that either. So we'll knock maybe. Come on. Whoa, come on. There we go. As you see, it shrinks as you take away items. But on the other side, like Caddy said, it also grows. That's kind of a strange thing, because if you start adding a lot of items to that, it's just going to end up taking up all your real estate over there. I kind of prefer that it would scroll down or do something different, kind of like how this works here with how everything scrolls. It's a full-featured desktop. Everything works well. This is the way it should be. Stable, comfortable, easy enough to use for the newbie, yet customizable enough that once you get a little bit past the blandness of Unity and the crippled feeling you have in Unity, you don't have to move on to a different distribution, but you can, with this one, grow. For instance, if we go into the configuration panel here, system settings, we have a lot of different options. Oh, and you'll notice I've got wobbly working. Now, it says it doesn't work proper for this flavor of cinnamon, and you're right, because you see these artifacts we have up here and over here that eventually disappear, and I can make it reappear there. Just kind of wibble it around, and you'll see that it's not too clean. As soon as we click in somewhere, though, it should make it go away, like I'm looking in backgrounds. Well, eventually it'll disappear, those artifacts. You know how something works for you once, but then you try to recreate it, and sometimes it acts differently? It doesn't kill your desktop, it just makes it a little strange. If we open up, for instance, this, it'll go away. Going on to that is with extensions, and you'll see there's the wobbly widgets or wobbly windows. If you want to add more, you can go to available extensions, and there's lots of extensions that you can try out for Cinnamon. I haven't looked to see if there's a place where you can go to find other extensions. Unfortunately, some of these don't work. Some of these are better than others. It's one of those things that, Caddy mentioned how he wished that they would eliminate those widgets that don't work. But the way I look at it is, it could be that it's a version difference that possibly broke with the latest version of Cinnamon and Mint. May I also remind you too, this is actually an RC, which is a release client, but that doesn't mean that it's the final. It means that they're still doing some testing, so you are going to find a few bugs here and there. But I think with any system, you always find the occasional this or that you run into. No matter how stable, you're always finding something. The question is, can you live with it, or will it be repaired? Do you know how to report a bug? Those sort of things are more important than anything. Linux Mint has been for many years my choice now to suggest to people who want to get their feet wet within Linux, that are maybe a little afraid to go with a more difficult distribution. They don't know what to do. I mean, that's the one thing about Linux. There is so much choice that for the beginner, the person who doesn't know much, it can be a little overwhelming. I find Linux Mint, though, to be very stable, whether you want a Ubuntu-based, Debian-based, a few other different base distributions. They have done a spot-on job of making Linux work well, and when they come out with a final release, it is normally so stable, so comfortable to use, so friendly. I can't say anything really too negative about Mint. It has been wonderful for the last couple years. It is a great, strong distribution. And the guys behind it, they do such a great job at looking at everything, making it usable, and instead of sticking to some sort of closed-mindedness of how this is the way it ought to be, and we're going to think out of the box and make something so weird and off the wall that most of the people aren't going to care for it. I find that one of the biggest things that most people want is they want familiarity, yet they want to be able to say, oh, that's cool. But at the same time, if they don't like it, they want to be able to change it back and put it the way they're used to having it. That's one thing I've always liked about Mint. You've gotten a lot of choices, a lot of different desktop environments, a lot of different based distributions, like I mentioned, Ubuntu, Debian. Now, because you might say that Ubuntu came from Debian, etc., etc., but now they're two different animals, and they're completely different in many ways. So, what else is to be said about Mint? Well, Cinnamon is pretty nifty. You've got all your different menu systems. You've got your little widgets here. If you go back into the settings, I like the fact that it was very easy for me to go down here to mouse and touchpad. And for instance, with my touchpad, I can't stand tapping. It makes it very easy to turn off. I also like to disable the touchpad when I'm typing, because you always have that palm issue, which makes it quite nice. It was very easy to go into the mouse settings and change and customize some of these areas. I like single clicking, I should say. So going into, say, view and edit and preferences, behavior. Very easy to set for single click items instead of double click items. If you're a double clicker though, you've got a choice. How about that? Moving along, you've got different ways. I do want to point out this. Linux for You and Me mentioned how his NVIDIA driver was using Nouveau as the default when he first started, and then he was having some issues and he thought because it was too new. I've got a much older video card, and let me see if it'll say it here. I was having the same, I'm not sure if it was the same issues, but I was seeing a lot of flashing and flickering using the Nouveau drivers. So I ended up going into the NVIDIA proprietary, and I'm not one of those that has to have everything open source. If a developer is willing to give me a proprietary driver for Linux that makes the hardware work better and more efficiently, I don't have a problem using their drivers to make my system work better. So in this case, you'll see I'm using the NVIDIA 331, which is the recommended from Ubuntu's sources. Before, I was using the Xorg Video Nouveau driver, and like I said, it was giving me a lot of flickering in some cases when I was watching YouTube videos and doing some other testing, some weirdness with it, and I think it was also causing a lot of frame drops. Once I went to the proprietary NVIDIA drivers, a lot of my issues kind of went away and started working well. Now, I'm sure if you had AMD or anything like that, this would probably change and allow you to set that up, but it is really nice and easy way to configure for such things. Everything else in here is wonderful, easy to find. You can change your background, your effects. If you watch Linux for You and Me, Caddy's video, you'll see that he talks about how you can even change animated intros to log in. Now, since it's just one user and it's test, I've set mine, of course, up to just auto log in, which is a nice feature to have. If you're a single user and you don't want to worry about every single time having to log in, that's a great feature to have. It still locks the screen at certain times. You still have to put your password in, so there's still security there. You still have to, of course, enter your password to do anything administrative. And so that security is comfortable for me. But it sure is nice to know that I can just turn it on, it's going to log into the system and be ready to use. Now, speaking of logging into the system, Ubuntu with Linux Mint and all that, it runs great in regards to it starts up quickly, it shuts down quickly. So there are some distributions I start up and I sit there and I wait and I wait and I see this and I see that, and I'm thinking, how long is it going to take to boot up? This one, boom, less than a minute, I'm up and running. Very happy with Linux Mint. I would suggest this to a lot of people who want a more stable environment, want choice, want something that they can grow with, still have a chance to set up settings, work with the files and the applications that they're used to, and just go with it. It's wonderful in my opinion. In fact, I'm so happy with this right here on my Gen 2 box. I like to have Gen 2 source-based all the time, but then I like to also have a bin-based distribution that's super easy to start over, redo, put back on there, go in and test some things, because let's face it, we don't always have 9-10 hours to recompile KDE and everything just to see if something's going to work. Now, it's been a long time since I've recompiled KDE, and I think actually for me it only takes about 3 to 5 hours, but still, sometimes that's a pain. Like the last time I did some updates, Chromium took me about 3 hours just to compile. Who has sometimes the time to sit there and wait for a 3-hour compile time for Chromium? I know I prefer Gen 2 and I prefer the source-based distribution over anything else, but sometimes you just need quick, dirty, and easy. And this one, stable, cool, wonderful. I think I'm going to stick it on there as my secondary. just for a while. I think it'll do me well. I'm really happy with it. So if you guys are wondering, what do I go to from Ubuntu because I'm not happy with Unity? And that's the cool thing. You have choice. You can decide what you want. You can go with whatever you want. So if you're happy with Unity, stick with it. If you're not happy but you still want the ease of a Ubuntu system, of the package manager, how easy it is to configure, most everything in the Ubuntu wikis will work within the Linux Mint environment, because behind the bones it's still the same guts. Or is that the other way around? Who knows? So if it's morning, evening, noon, or night, whatever you're having, I hope you enjoy it. Thanks for watching again. Hope you've enjoyed a third video in 1 week time between Tuesday and Tuesday. I won't always be able to do this. I have a lot of travel coming up. I'll be bouncing all over the place pretty soon. But I am going to do my best to get out as many videos as I can when I have the time to keep up with you guys. I hope you enjoy. We'll talk to y'all later. Bye, guys.